Mr. Chairman, members, thank you. Good afternoon. The chair noted this is AB 760. And let me at the outset then notice the suggested technical and substantive amendments and questions raised in the analysis. I don't think there's any problem with the technical amendments. I know on the substantive issues that we'll continue to work with the committee staff as the bill enjoys the respite on suspense file. AB 760 would impose a 5-cent per bullet tax on ammunition. It's just that simple. And the bill revenue generated would be dedicated to help fund and really restore funding for a pre-existing, unanimously thought successful early mental health intervention and prevention program known as MEMI. You'll hear a little bit more about it as we go. It's a program that is designed to address the mild and moderate mental health issues that are exhibited by children at a very early age, grades 1 through 3, and has had a strikingly successful success rate. But before we talk more about that, let's talk a little bit about another very disturbing phenomenon in our state and across our nation. Gun violence is disturbingly prevalent, both here in California and across the country. According to the FBI, California had the highest number of total gun deaths out of any state last year, accounting for 68% of all gun murders in the United States. Approximately 5,700 people were either hospitalized or killed due to guns in California during 2011. Over 600,000 guns were sold in California last year, and bullet sales are estimated to have been as high as $1.2 billion, and that's on an annual basis. According to researchers at the Harvard School of Public Health, the use of guns and ammunition in acts of violence create externalities. Economists term for it, externalities that cost more than $600 for every person in the country based on assault-related gunshot injuries and homicides. What externality means in the everyday world is the costs that we all bear as a result of gun violence, which are not covered by those who generate those costs. We know that taxing ammunition can provide a stable source of revenue to meaningfully target gun violence prevention and to reduce these external costs. Now, in making this suggestion, what appealed to me was the idea that we could use some of this money to help our youngest children with early signs of some mental disability. And that inspiration, I must say, truly came from those in the wake of the Sandy Hook Elementary School tragedy, who spoke of the need to protect gun rights, but to address mental health issues at the same time. Now, in looking at this as a source for which this money could be effectively and meaningfully used, I want to underscore that there is no correlation necessarily between mental disabilities and being prone to violence or gun violence in particular. We have seen a number of incidents where the perpetrators of very violent acts have had some form of mental disability. But what we know that's important here is that by having the opportunity to address mental disabilities at the early stages, we can help both our communities and those who have the mental disabilities, because through diagnosis and treatment, they have a much better chance of staying in the mainstream as they grow older. That's the reason AB 760 dedicates the revenue that this bill would raise to the Early Mental Health Intervention and Prevention Grant Program. I've got several witnesses here with me who I would like to now turn to, and of course I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dickinson, and for noting in your early statement that this is a suspense file candidate, and also remind authors that per the rules of the committee, we have 2 witnesses in support or in opposition, 2 minutes each. Anything beyond that is a me too with just getting your name and where you're from. So With that, folks here to discuss being in support of Mr. Dickinson's bill, if you would please have your 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Ben Rubin with Children Now, a multi-issue policy research and advocacy organization dedicated to promoting children's health and education in California. We're proud to be sponsoring and supporting AB 760, Assemblymember Dickinson's bill to restore the Early Mental Health Initiative, or EMI. I know from my background as a neurobiologist how critical the early years are for healthy brain development, and I've been incredibly impressed by the lasting gains made by kindergarten to 3rd grade children who've been helped by EMI programs. It's unfortunately all too common for children to experience the kind of adversity that has been demonstrated to negatively impact brain development. Significant adversity associated with family stress, such as persistent poverty and threatening neighborhoods, elevate the risk of serious mental health problems and undermine healthy functioning in the early years. This kind of toxic stress literally interferes with developing brain architecture and chemistry and impairs developmental outcomes like school achievement. We of course don't want to wait until they develop diagnoses for mental disorders and are in crisis to properly care for our children's mental, emotional, and social well-being. Unfortunately, we already have a program to address this need. The rationale for EMI, when it was created over 20 years ago, was that it's in California's best interest, both in economic and in human terms, to invest in early mental health intervention and prevention services, to identify and treat minor difficulties that our children are experiencing before they become major barriers to later success. In over 2 decades, the initiative has fulfilled its promise and helped tens of thousands of children experiencing mild to moderate mental health and school adjustment problems, kids who exhibit aggression, anxiety, and isolation. This success is immediately apparent when talking to people who've been providing these critical services, whose passion is evident, who tend to use words like remarkable, special, unique, and critical to describe their programs. And furthermore, the impressions have been validated by a series of scientific evaluations which are impressive both in their rigor and in their results, which demonstrate the effective and lasting reach of these programs. Of course, we're discussing this today because EMI was defunded in the budget last year. AB 760 seeks to refund these critical school-based mental health programs by imposing a modest tax on ammunition. We all know too well from recent events how devastating the effects of gun violence are to our children, families, and communities. And neuroscience has taught us how such violence can adversely impact our young children's developing brains and abilities to productively deal with stress. Experts such as the American Psychological Association have developed extensive recommendations for combating gun violence. Among them is the recommendation to support programs that promote the healthy social and emotional development of students in schools. We now have the opportunity to do just that, support the healthy development of California's children, support positive educational outcomes, and combat gun violence by supporting AB 760. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next witness.
Scott Lindstrom, Time for Kids. We're an advocacy group for elementary services for children in the realm of school mental health. The research is really clear out there that we need to start earlier with kids than we have been doing. There's research that ties childhood behavior, school failure, trauma, anxiety to long-term issues with mental health, school failure, delinquency, criminal behavior. So we need to start earlier. That's something that California has neglected to do well, except in this specific case of the Early Mental Health Initiative. For 30 years as a school psychologist, I've never seen a program that was consistently as well implemented or as thoroughly evaluated and demonstrating success as the Early Mental Health Initiative provided. Over the past 20 years, Early Mental Health Initiative provided services. In the last year, 2011-12, about 30,000 kids received either direct interventions with early intervention or school-wide prevention supports. With those supports, they addressed the main issues of childhood: antisocial issues, aggressive behavior, social isolation, anxiety, bullying. These are things that we can address both with the kids involved and school-wide in prevention efforts through the Early Mental Health Initiative. It affected equally all subgroups of the population, all ethnicities, all native languages, all socioeconomic status, kids in foster homes, kids living with parents, kids going through divorce. It impacted everybody equally. There was nobody that was untouched by this. In general, this is the most effective mental health program that's probably out there and evaluated. We'd like to see it continue. We believe that it saves money in the long time. And as much as that's important, it also saves social costs. The cost of being identified as mentally ill, or the cost of failing school, or ending up in a life where you are surviving either through incarceration or through assistance from the state. This program is outstanding. It really impacts all kids. And I want to just tell you about Roberto. Roberto was a third grader that I know of who was making daily visits to the principal's office, in trouble all the time. And about his 6th week in this program, being seen once a week by a person who's not a counselor, but a child aide who supports these kids. This child was walking down the hall with his person, Miss Vicky. And he said, "Miss Vicky, why does coming to you like this help me do better in school?" His visits to the principal had stopped because of the intervention he had here. He went on to be successful in school beyond those years. So I would say that it's time for us to step up and do this.
Thank you very much, sir. The next witness, state their name and the organization they're representing.
Good afternoon, Chair members. Celeste Shepard, representing the California Division of the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapists and Support.
Rusty Sealex, Mental Health Association of California and California Council of Community Mental Health Services.
Kathleen Hamilton with the Children's Partnership of Please Don't Let Us Support Agencies.
Good afternoon, Serena Kirk with the Children's Defense Fund California and strong support of AB 760, specifically the reinstatement of the mental health initiative. Thank you.
Next witness in support.
Tara Ross with the Williams Jones and Associates on behalf of the City of Sacramento and strong support.
And considering we have a lot of folks who would like to speak, perhaps the previous witnesses would give up their seats.
Good afternoon, committee. John Roberson on behalf of the Los Angeles County Education Foundation and strong support.
Good afternoon, Alice Ricks with the California School Health Centers Association, also in strong support.
Good afternoon, Spence Member, Vice President Pat Kids and Supports.
Joan Burnett, Child Aid for Benicia Unified School District and support.
Kelly Liner, school psychologist with Benicia Unified and also coordinator of our local Emmy program in support.
Thank you.
Jane Clark, coordinator of child welfare and attendance in Twin River School District in support of this.
Allison Collier with Sunny Unified School District and the grandmother of a successful undergraduate in support.
Next witness.
Mary Village, President of California School Employees, Elk Grove Unified. We're in very strong support of this initiative.
Tracy Wilshire, Twin Rivers Unified Child Welfare and Attendance and coordinator this program. We appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm Arthur Sayers, school psychologist for 34 years, coordinator of one of the Emmy programs in the Folsom Court Local District, as well as a board member for Time for Kids, and I enthusiastically support this bill. Thank you.
Paul Tuber with the Oak Grove Unified School District, board member of Time for Kids, strong support.
Any other witnesses here in support? Seeing none, do we have witnesses here in opposition to this bill? Could you please come up to the 4 chairs in queue? And as I indicated, we have 2 witnesses to be in opposition, given 2 minutes each, and then after that, name and organization to represent.
Mr. Chairman, and for the NRA, we'd like to do 4 people 1 minute each to give the same amount of time and 4 people for this. Okay, sir?
I'm flexible.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, as well as the National Rifle Association. We're not here to oppose the merits of the program that people allow. I think the programs speak for themselves. What we're here to oppose is the excessive tax. The most popular cartridge out there is 1022 ammunition. Here is an empty box of 1022 ammunition. The cost of the ammunition is $1.49. The tax on this box of ammunition would be $2.50. So when you say a modest tax, when the tax costs more than the product, doesn't highly fall into the modest category. So for those reasons and many other reasons we put our analysis, we oppose it.
Thank you. Next witness, 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kathy Lynch representing the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the California Association of Firearms Retailers. We've just handed out a document that we hope is a little bit of an economic primer for you on the subject of firearms. First of all, I think that there's merit on the side of the supporters and the need for mental health funding. I think, however, there's really no nexus here. We could just the same tax video games if we're going to talk about violent activities that need to be taxed. In fact, firearms do enjoy some of the highest taxes in the nation. We have a federal excise tax on top of state and federal taxes. The firearms industry is one of the industries that is #1 in California in terms of business. That isn't always acknowledged or recognized. And the outdoor sporting activities also are very high. We rank #5 in collection of the federal excise tax money that goes into the California Fish and Game Preservation Fund and funds a lot of our resources in California. As you can see, this would be very regressive in nature. And there's also other legislation such as lead-free ammunition, which would actually have a detrimental effect on even collecting the taxes for the wildlife preservation account. So we'd ask you to take careful consideration of what we're taxing this product. It's one of the most heavily taxed in the United States.
Next witness, 1 minute.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, or good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Tom Patterson, representing California Rifle and Pistol Association. We're opposed to the bill, but we'd like to point out that we understand the concept, the idea that there's reason to look into these matters to try to prevent mental disability problems, but the reality of it is there's a disconnect between this bill and the actual situation at hand. As was mentioned, there's already a heavy excise tax on firearms and ammunition in California. That particular tax right now completely funds the hunter education program in the state of California. Thousands of people are trained every year, both youngsters and adults, and so that's already one tax. That is directly affected because there is a correlation between hunting and ammunition, and that's the reason for that. So at this point, it would be premature to make a decision to actually go so far as to say that there is a nexus between ammunition misuse by a very small percentage and that everybody that enjoys the outdoors and target shooting, anything like that, should have to pay that fee. So for that and many other reasons, we're opposed. Thank you.
And the next witness for 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman, Sam Paredes, representing Gun Owners of California, and also the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is opposed to this bill. There's a significant constitutional problem with this bill. If you look up the Minneapolis Star versus the Minnesota Commissioner of Revenue, where the United States Supreme Court held that the government, when it tried to put a special excise tax on the cost of paper and ink, it was found to be unconstitutional because it put an unfair and undue burden on the exercising of a constitutional right, and because it singled out a specific industry to go after. This bill does much the same thing in going after the ammunition. We believe that it's clear that the constitutional issue here, and are prepared to take it over the top. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We got one more here. Just one brief point. Craig DeLuz with the California Association of Federal Firearms Licensees, and I just want to bring note to one provision in this bill that makes it a misdemeanor for any retailer to advertise to the public or any consumer that the tax or part thereof will be assumed by the retailer or that it will not be added to the price of the ammunition. I just bring that up because that's basically... We have 4 minutes on this side. You're taking us time.
Being real quick,
No, sir.
already furniture stores are able to do tax holidays and things like that. You're basically telling firearms ammunition retailers that they're not able to do. What is the...
Sir, thank you very much. Yes, please. State your name and the organization you're representing.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Mark Elling with California Water Club. I just wanted to quickly say, hunting is one of the safest outdoor recreation activities statistically. If anything, we should get a tax credit, not an additional tax.
Thank you very much. Next witness, please.
Jeff Simon, I'm a constituent, a member of Mr. Dickinson's district. The perpetrators of gun violence don't follow laws and they don't pay taxes.
Thank you, sir.
I oppose this predatory tax.
Thank you very much. Next witness, state your name and the organization you're from.
Bill Gates of the California Outdoor Heritage Alliance, representing nearly every major state and national wildlife conservation organization. We strongly oppose this bill.
Thank you. Next witness.
David Boyd, on behalf of myself and 29 other people in Sacramento, and we oppose this because we shoot thousands of rounds a year.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Jeff Job, California Shooting Sports Association. We strongly oppose this bill, the 760 tax on ammo, along with thousands and thousands of others that I've met in the past 3 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next witness, please.
Rodolfo Antonio, Cabello, California. I oppose this.
Thank you.
Scott Swade, official representative of CalGuns.net, 140,000 Californians who are gun owners, they oppose that.
Drake Davis, 2006 Libertarian Party candidate, first U.S. House District of Oregon, now returning to my home state. I oppose this bill. I think we're going to tax. We need to do it on videotapes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next witness in opposition.
John Anderson, I oppose this bill.
My name is Nancy Larnon. I am a member of several Tea Parties and Oath Keepers. I oppose this infringement on my Second Amendment rights.
Thank you for your time. Next witness, please.
Jim Ricketts, co-founder and treasurer of Tea Party United. We're taxed enough already. I strongly oppose this bill.
Arthur Greenwald. I live in Dickinson's district, and this tax is a new burden on people with concealed weapons permits who should practice with firearms. So I'm opposed to AB 760. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Next one.
James Snyder, Classic Tea Party. I strongly oppose this bill based on that it is an infringement of my God-given and constitutional rights.
Thank you for your time.
Hi guys, my name is Marianne Mueller, and I'm a parent of the Delaware County, and I oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, members David Wolf with Our Jerks Taxpayers Association, we're opposed to the bill.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in opposition to the bill? Before I ask the author to close, or if you'd like to respond to any of the questions or concerns, I'd like to open it up to the committee and see if they have any questions or concerns. I actually don't have a question for you, but I just wanted to state that I have 2,000 signatures here from just one of my counties. And I just wanted to let the record know that I do have these that are in opposition to your bill. Mr. Dickinson and I wanted to make that point. Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Perhaps I could let Mr. Dickinson close with Dr. Penn.
So, well, I just wanted to say that certainly early mental health is certainly something that has tremendous benefit. Someone who's a pediatrician, someone who's taking care of many of these children. I know that unfortunately we've had to make cuts at the county and the state level, and certainly we should be looking at ways to refund this very important program.
Mr. Dickinson, if you'd like to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to go through all the points made one by one. You have other business to conduct this afternoon, but I did want to comment on a couple of them. One is the argument that the tax is excessive. And I think there are a number of ways to go at this issue. As the committee may know, Mr. Bonta has also introduced a similar bill using a different approach, a percentage approach. He and I are discussing how we might work together on this subject. So that could change. We don't want the tax to be unfair in that respect. It should be reasonable with respect to how much somebody pays. In terms of expression of opinion, I would just remind the committee if you're not aware that polling in California shows overwhelming support for measures to reduce gun violence, including taxes on ammunition. Better than 60% support, run to close to 2/3 support for these kinds of measures. Thirdly, the argument that this is unfairly singling out one constituent to pay for something that is a concern of all of us. The fact is that we do that in many areas. We do that with automobile insurance. We all pay automobile insurance. It covers the costs of accidents and damage and injuries. We don't all get in accidents. We don't all cause injuries or damage or harm, but yet we all pay for insurance. And even with the federal excise tax on guns and ammunition, that goes to restore wildlife habitat. Well, not every gun owner is buying ammunition to go hunting. So even there, in the area of guns alone, we have some gun owners paying to support things that they may never get the direct, or perceive they get the direct benefit of. I do want to leave you with a quote from the National Rifle Association website, because I think it's very relevant to this discussion. Since 1966, the National Rifle Association has urged the federal government to address the problem of mental illness and violence. As we noted then, quote, the time is at hand to seek means by which society can identify, treat, and temporarily isolate such individuals, unquote. Because, quote, elimination of that instrument by which these crimes are committed cannot arrest the ravages of a psychotic murder, unquote. The NRA will support any reasonable step to fix America's broken mental health system without intruding on the constitutional rights of Americans. This measure does not intrude on anyone's constitutional rights and would address our ailing mental health system, to say the least, and I would ask for my.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dickinson, and I think you also noted earlier, this is the bill that will be referred to the suspense now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next author will be Mr. Bloom.